All right, thank y'all for being here. First thing, I just want to say thoughts and prayers with everyone in Panama City and Mexico Beach and Port St. Joe and really all the surrounding areas. And thanks to all the responders that are down there. 231's been packed with people heading that way, which kind of warms your heart. But wanted all those people to know that we're thinking about them and praying for them. A lot of people within our organization been affected by that, so puts things in perspective. Still doesn't make performances like Saturday any easier. That was a bad loss for us. I don't think you can put it any other way. Hats off to Coach Gill and Liberty. He had his team ready. They played better than we did, and that's why they won. But we played bad football on Saturday afternoon, and we can talk about it a bunch. But it was bad. I thought the team was emotionally ready to go. It's not one of those deals where you're flat. You're playing a non-league game. I wish you could chalk it up to that. It wasn't that. I thought our kids emotionally were ready to go. We just didn't play well. And first and foremost, I think that's on me. That's my job as a head coach to make sure we play better and our staff. We didn't do a good enough job. It's one thing when you go and you have a bunch of lack of efforts, or that wasn't it. Our kids played hard. We just didn't play very well. And I think that's got to be taken by myself and the staff first and foremost. I'll give you a quick recap of the game in all three phases. Offensively, I thought just our staff, led by me, just didn't do a good enough job putting us in position to make plays. A lot of Troy beating Troy, and that's the last thing I tell our guys before we leave the locker room every week. Some of y'all hear me say it when y'all watch Behind the Wall. I say Troy doesn't beat Troy, and I usually say let's roll. And a lot of Troy beating Troy. We had 4 sacks, 8 penalties on offense, 2 turnovers. Our perimeter blocking was the worst I've ever been around, and that's from coaching wideouts and being a coordinator, head coach. Our perimeter blocking was the absolute worst I've ever been around. Our pass protection was not good enough when we did throw the ball, and then our passing game, we've got to get more out of it. If we're gonna be successful through the rest of the season, we've got to be able to execute in the passing game, and we didn't. Whether it was throwing, whether it was route running, whether it was protecting, it was really just a total breakdown in all phases. I thought positive signs, we did run the ball reasonably well versus a 9-man box, and we hit a couple explosive plays. Defensively, if you look at it, I thought our stats were good. We limited the run. We just had several critical errors that cost us, and we gave up 3 long scoring drives. I think the scoring drives, we had 2 drives of 75 yards and a drive of 89 yards that won the game. We allowed them to go 89 yards in over 4 minutes. And then really our Achilles heel all year has been 3rd and long conversions. And until we get that fixed, we got to figure out ways to pressure the quarterback. We're not doing a good enough job of that right now. We got to put our guys in better positions to pressure the quarterback. And we got to make plays. We got to understand in the secondary how to cover in those situations. We got to put them in a better position coverage-wise also. I thought we didn't handle tempo very well, and I think that's on staff and players. Low sense of urgency. And we've got to do a better job of that because people are going to exploit that as we move throughout our schedule. Special teams, I thought, were the lone bright spot. We've played really at a high level special teams wise all year. Our punt team continues to do a really good job limiting returns. We had the one big negative was the fumbled punt return by Rookard. We put Marcus in the game, and I thought he did a good job fielding those balls, and he had a big punt return. Jabir Fry did a nice job on kickoff returns. And I thought Sumter's field goals were huge. Really could have been the difference in the game had we held them there on the last drive. So very disappointed in our performance. Not up to our standards from a coaching or a playing wise. And the encouraging thing is I really don't have a question on how we're going to respond, and that's from a coaching perspective or a plan perspective. We're about the right things. I think we've had adversity in the past, and we've responded in the right way. That doesn't always mean that we're going to respond this way, but I have nothing that proves otherwise. And we're going to fight. We're going to get it back working. We've been working on fixing it the last 2 days. We'll present that plan to our players this afternoon when we get back in front of them for the first time. And gave everybody the day off yesterday, and I think that's the best thing to do after you have a disappointing performance because it takes emotions out of it. quite frankly, that's probably the most upset, the maddest I've been after a game. Really going back to Idaho in 2015. So I think it's better organizationally if for the players and the staff and head coach, everybody involved, just to take some time. You take the emotions out of it, and then you make calculated decisions how you're going to move forward. And that's what we're doing today, and we'll present to our players. But I have great faith in them and the staff that will respond in the right way. And the good thing for us is that was a non-conference game. That doesn't mean it wasn't important. It was important, but it was a non-conference game. All of our goals are still intact. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
What did you think about how Sawyer competed and handled himself out there?
Yeah, I thought from a managing the game standpoint, I thought he did fine. He's got to be better throwing the football. I mean, that's clear to everybody that watched the game. He's got to throw the football better. He was a lot better in practice. He's been better throwing the football than he was in every game that he's played in his entire career. He may have pressed. That's something that you may have to ask him. We've got to do a better job of y'all know I like basketball, so I always equate these things to basketball. So, so much of what a quarterback does is very similar to what a point guard does in basketball. And the point guard distributes the ball to get their best players involved. And he did a really good job managing the game early in the contest, especially on our first 3 or 4 drives, of getting the ball out on the perimeter on some of our run-pass combinations we have. And we just blocked them terrible. I mean, I don't think there's a better way to put it. We just did not block them very well. So they were only getting one or 2 yards on the receiver screens when they should have been 4 to 6 yard plays. And now you're, instead of looking at 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10, you're looking at 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3. So I don't think he got much help in that regard. And then I think he lost faith and quit throwing them. And everything kept getting suppressed in the run game, so we weren't able to hit those explosive plays. So I think when you look at bad offensive performances, I think that the quarterback always gets too much blame. And I wish it was as simple as, hey, we didn't play that great at quarterback. We didn't play as good as I think we can, but I think that's way too simple just to blame him. I think that myself and our offense staff got to do a much better job. We got to figure out who we are moving forward and make sure we put our kids in the best position. But Sawyer, he did some really good things, and there's some things where he missed some open guys. And a couple of those passes he missed, he's got people bearing down on him.
Coach, you mentioned tempo. We didn't handle their tempo really well, but it seemed like on offense, except for Gunner's series in the second quarter, we weren't ever able to establish tempo on offense, and I think you probably
Yeah. Well, I thought we did on that touchdown drive that we hit, and then we hit both those big plays we hit were in tempo situations, Jerry, and then on Gunner's drive, what happens is you've got to have successful plays to be able to create tempo opportunities, and we played from behind the chains a lot, and then the other thing too is, when you get in games like that, because I thought Turner Gill managed the game really well. I thought he did a good job, and kudos to him. It's how we've really managed the game in some of these games where we've upset people. You limit possessions, you run the football, you don't really gamble on defense or special teams, and he did that. And we probably could have used tempo more, but you got to have successful plays do that, and we didn't have as many as we needed to.
Over the last couple seasons, when you guys get on a roll, you have that one letdown game, Arkansas State, South Alabama last year. Is it good kind of maybe getting that out of the way now before the back half of Sun Belt Conference play?
The goal is not to have those. This game's different, though, just because like other than that South Alabama game, some games we've lost, I'm not sure that those other teams were really talented and maybe had some areas where they were clearly better than us in some of those performances. Even the South game last year, they had some really high-level individual players. Now, that's not demeaning to Liberty at all, because I think their quarterback's really good. I think the Farrow kid, the receiver that really hurt us, he played well. Their two defensive ends and their Mike linebacker are all high-quality players. But I didn't feel like there was really matchup issues in this game like some of the other ones that we've lost. So we didn't play well. You know, I think if you look back at some of those, like the Arkansas State game after the App game in 16, we were really flat. That was the South game after the LSU game. We were really flat. That wasn't the case on Saturday. Had energy. It was a good atmosphere. We just didn't play well. So I don't think you go back. I really won't reference those because this situation is different. It's how do we learn from what happened on Saturday? How do we make sure it doesn't get repeated?
Just wanted to get your perspective on what happened in the red zone, because you got there, but threes aren't as good as sevens. So.
Yeah, well, we had 2 trips to the red zone. One of the field goals we never got to the red zone, Ken. 2 of the trips we got down there. I think the number one issue was lack of patience on my part. We went for the jugular probably, and if I had to do it over again, I would have just grinded it out because we were having more success grinding it out. So I probably would have just grinded it out, tried to get in a 3rd and short, 4th and short, and move the chains that way. So I think first it's got to be on me. The second thing is we had penalties back there that moved us back. You know, we had 2 different times where we had 3rd and short, and we took penalties. So I'll take it on me the first, you know, from a play calling standpoint, rather than going right to the end zone. You know, if I had to do it over again, I'd grind it out. But we can't, again, Troy beating Troy, we can't get costly penalties, especially when we're struggling, you know, and that's what happened on 2 different occasions.
Coach, after the Boise State game, I remember this was one of my first press conferences. You said, we'll be fine. The confidence level. After this loss, do you feel the same confidence level, or is it a little bit different?
No, I mean, I feel confident how we're going to respond. You know, I think we're going to come out and we're going to compete. You know, I do think that that I think a lot of it has to be I'll know more about after today's meetings. We get back on the practice field. We get into South Alabama prep. Starting on Tuesday, we'll get into tomorrow we'll get into South Alabama prep. So I'll have a better answer for you then. But I do think the makeup of our guys, you know, our guys like to play football. They compete. I felt really strongly because after the Boise game, I knew part of the reasons why we performed well, or we didn't perform as well. We didn't handle pressure as well. We didn't do as good a job getting our defensive guys ready from getting the physical reps that they needed. This one, I feel really confident, but it's a totally different scenario. And Boise was better than us too. You know, Boise was just better. That's why I was like that in the post game. I have the same level of confidence that we're going to bounce back. But the reason behind the confidence is different, if that makes sense.
Flipping the page now to South Alabama.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not real prepared on South Alabama. So everything I'm going to talk about on South Alabama will be kind of stuff that I've watched just in some of their TV games. I've worried about Troy all day yesterday, and I worried about Troy today. I've got a lot of respect for Steve Campbell and his staff. Obviously, there's some familiarity there, but I didn't mean to cut you off, Justin. So there may not be real quality answers on some of this.
I just wanted to ask you, coming off a disappointing loss, but then you have more time to prepare for them. Is this game coming at the perfect time with it being a rivalry game? Well,
we're trying to think of the best way to answer this. I'm glad we're getting back in our conference play. This is a rivalry game. I've made the mistake in the past of making this game maybe bigger than some of the others. I won't repeat that. It's a big game because it's our next game. But we'll treat this like a normal week. We'll start South Alabama prep tomorrow, 7 days out, just like we normally would, and they're coming off a big win. They had a big win over Alabama State. They've played a really tough early season schedule. I mean, if you look back at who they've played, and then they had a extremely tough road stretch where they had to play 3 quality opponents on the road. So I know they've got some confidence built off the last week's win, and we'll get a team that's very well prepared. They're going to be tough. They're going to be well coached, just because I know who they have on that staff. And we're going to have to play considerably better than we did on Saturday to have a chance to win that football game on Tuesday night.
Just to follow up to that, Coach, last time we went to Mobile in a midweek game, our fans showed up, showed out, especially our students. I know you'd like to see a repeat performance there.
You know, and I go to the Student Center quite a bit, once or twice a week, and I know they've been selling tickets for several weeks now, and I have all the faith that they're going to show up. You know, and to be honest, we need them. We need them. I thought our students showed up on our midweek game last Thursday, or when we played Georgia State. You know, but we need our students, we need our fans to show up, and we've played well in that venue before. That doesn't guarantee that we'll play well at Ladd this time, but we played well there before. That was the best Sunbelt atmosphere of a game that I can remember. You know, just because we had so many of our fans there. It was loud. The game went down to the wire. So much happened in the end zone where our students were. So, fun night. Hopefully we can recreate that in a number of ways.
Going into the South game, do you feel as a coach and an offensive mind, you saw how the performance was last week, you're going to coach Sawyer a little bit differently than Caleb, or are you learning from that?
Well, I think you're always learning. You know, and I think that, you know, we hit the reset button a little bit mid-year with switching quarterbacks. I think you treat all your quarterbacks differently. I think everybody has different strengths, different weaknesses, how they handle things, what they see, what they don't see, how they communicate in and out of the game. So last week was a learning experience. I'm not sure that we served Sawyer or Gunner as well as we should have, and so I think you got to look in the mirror. That's something myself and our offense staff will do. We got to put them in a better position. We probably need to be different. I don't think there's a question about that. What we did last week wasn't successful. So I think the definition of insanity, if you keep doing the same things, expect different results. You know, so we're going to be different. How different we're going to be, I think, kind of what South Alabama does on defense, and trying to get our best players involved.